Joining us now, Democratic Congressman from Washington State, Adam Smith. He's the ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee. Congressman, thanks for being with us. What did you learn in yesterday's briefing, and what questions do you still have?
Well, we didn't learn the specifics of what the plan is going forward, and I think that was Chairman Rogers' frustration. We're kind of stuck at the moment in this conflict, and you've sort of seen this. The president, is not accomplishing the goals that they wanted to accomplish, which was basically to break the Iranian regime. Whether it was a regime change or not, they wanted an Iranian regime that said, okay, we're going to abandon our nuclear program, we're going to abandon our ballistic missile program, and we're going to stop supporting terrorist groups in the region. Well, they're really no closer to that goal today than they were when they started. Now, we certainly degraded Iran's capability in terms of the ballistic missile program, but we're not close to achieving that bigger, more important goal that would have made this project make a lot more sense. So the president's facing a tough choice. Does he double down and try to achieve something that really there's no clear plan to achieve, or does he say that we've achieved victory? And either way he wants to go, he needs to explain that. Achieve victory how? What did we accomplish? Or if you think we need to keep doing this war, what more are we going to achieve, and what are you going to do? What are you going to bomb? Is there boots on the ground? What's the plan? That's what we did not hear yesterday.
So you didn't get any sense, no inclination of which direction the president is heading?
No, there were a lot of questions. We've got, one Marine Expeditionary Unit close to arriving in the Gulf, another one on the way. We've got 2,000 airborne soldiers from the 82nd Airborne showing up. Why? What is the plan in terms of what we think they should do? We asked that question. A number of members asked that question repeatedly yesterday. We were given no answer as to why those ground forces are being moved to the region, or even what the sort of menu of options is. What do we think we can do with them? And all this is very concerning to me. Why I didn't support starting the war in the first place, and I support ending it now. The goal of officially eliminating Iran as a problem was never realistic. There was never a clear plan of achieving that. And there was never an idea of, okay, if we can't achieve that, what can we achieve? And does that justify the cost? Because the cost, as we know, has been enormous. 13 service members killed. Iran now has complete control of the Strait of Hormuz. Gas prices are climbing. The global economy is crashing. So what was it that we thought we were going to achieve if we couldn't achieve the more maximalist goals that I think a lot of people would love to see? It's just a matter of how you get there.
There's no doubt we've heard the cacophony of frustration both in your party and across the aisle now from Republicans about the lack of transparency, the lack of a plan. But is there a precedent whereby the Pentagon, defense officials, the White House should be telegraphing or giving insight to members of Congress about where the war should be heading? Is there precedent for telegraphing those war plans?
No, 100%. I mean, you don't telegraph them publicly, but that's why we have classified hearings. I mean, during the course of the Iraq and the Afghanistan campaign, there were a number of different bend points in those conflicts. And in every one, the Bush administration, the Obama administration, they came up to the Hill and they talked us through what they were thinking and what their options were. The surge in Iraq, President Obama's decision after taking office in 2009 to stick with Afghanistan. All of that was discussed in great...
You're listening to Strategic Signals, the show that cuts through the noise and gets to the heart of global security crises. Imagine sending thousands of troops and billions of dollars into the world's most volatile zone, but not really knowing what the next step is. That's where America stands today in the Iran conflict. Hi, I'm your host, and today we're tackling the frustrating absence of a clear plan for dealing with Iran, a tale of shifting goals, ambiguous strategies, and rising global stakes. Ever heard terms like force posture or regime change tossed around? Think of force posture like setting up chess pieces for a match you haven't decided how to win, and regime change as hoping your rival will voluntarily forfeit. In this episode, we'll dissect what officials are and aren't telling us, why it matters for global stability, and how uncertainty can be as dangerous as any missile. Ready for a deep dive into strategy, transparency, and what it really means when the path forward is a question mark? Let's break it down. Let's rewind. What did the U.S. want to accomplish with its pressure campaign against Iran? At its core, the strategy called for Iran to abandon its nuclear ambitions, halt its ballistic missile program, and stop supporting regional militias a tall order, by any standard. Now, maybe you're asking, was this about regime change in Tehran? Officially, that's always denied. But the reality is that policymakers hope to see a dramatic shift in Iran's behavior, if not its government. Here's the tension. Sanctions and military maneuvers were meant to coerce Iran. But so far, we're not seeing the regime budge. The term maximalist goals comes up a bit like trying to remodel your entire house when you barely have enough budget to fix the roof. So, are these goals too ambitious or just poorly executed? The conflict between ambition and feasibility is at the heart of this policy struggle, and it's leaving both Congress and the public in the dark about what's next. Let's talk about outcomes. We've heard about degrading Iran's ballistic missile capability, a technical win, if you will. But ask yourself, has that moved us any closer to the ultimate goal of lasting regional stability? Suppose you're in the briefing room and you ask, have we succeeded in making Iran give up its nuclear program or stop funding proxy forces? The honest answer, not really. The situation in the Strait of Hormuz is more precarious than ever, with Iran controlling this strategic choke point and the global economy feeling the tremors. There's a glaring gap between what was promised and what's been delivered. In military speak, we call this a capabilities gap, like bringing a screwdriver to a job that really needed a hammer. The cost? 13 service members lost, rising gas prices, and no clear victory in sight. Now, let's address the elephant in the room, the lack of transparency. Both Democrats and Republicans are voicing their frustration about not having a clue as to what the actual plan is. If you're wondering, isn't Congress supposed to have oversight over military action? You're absolutely right. But here's the snag. Despite classified briefings, lawmakers are being stonewalled about the president's intended course of action. Imagine showing up to a team meeting and the coach won't even tell you the playbook. Two technical concepts show up here. Forced deployment, that's the movement of troops and equipment, and menu of options basically, the strategic choices available. Right now, Congress is being served a menu with the main course missing. This opacity isn't just frustrating. It undermines the core democratic principle of checks and balances. Here's where things get even more complex. Thousands of American troops, including a Marine Expeditionary Unit and the 82nd Airborne, are being moved toward the Gulf. But why? There's no word on whether this is a show of force, preparation for a rescue mission, or the first step toward boots-on-the-ground engagement. Picture someone assembling a jigsaw puzzle, but refusing to show the cover of the box. That's what these troop movements feel like, a buildup without a clear objective. The military term here is force projection, which means showing you can strike if needed, and strategic ambiguity, deliberately keeping your intentions unclear to keep adversaries guessing. But here's the problem. Ambiguity might confuse the enemy, but it also breeds anxiety at home. If you're in Congress, you want to know, what are we actually trying to achieve with this escalation? And at what cost? So, what have we learned from this tangled web of strategy and uncertainty? First, ambitious goals without a realistic path, like expecting regime change overnight, lead to frustration and unintended consequences. Second, keeping Congress and the public in the dark doesn't just slow down decision-making, it erodes trust at the highest levels. Third, escalation without a transparent rationale is a recipe for anxiety both domestically and abroad. If you're thinking, what should we do now? My concrete suggestion: demand clear communication from our leaders and insist on regular, candid briefings for oversight bodies. Imagine if every military buildup came with a simple, honest outline of objectives and risks. Wouldn't that change the public conversation? Next week, we'll dig into the role of intelligence. How much should lawmakers know? And when does secrecy cross the line? If you care about smart strategy and transparent governance, you won't want to miss it. For now, stay curious, stay vigilant, and keep questioning the stories behind the headlines.
Great detail in a bipartisan way with the oversight committees in Congress. And look, the biggest problem with this war is not that President Trump isn't paying attention to Congress enough. The biggest problem is that he launched it in the first place and the cost that is happening. I want to be very clear about that. But it is also the case that he is once again ignoring the Constitution in favor of autocratic executive rule. I don't have to talk to Congress. The reason those checks and balances are in place, in part, is to try to prevent mistakes like this, to make sure that the people are heard through their representatives in the House and the Senate. And Trump is completely ignoring that process to a level I have not seen. I've been here a while and been through a lot of conflicts and a lot of presidents. This is different. This is the president saying, leave me alone. I'm doing this on my own. I don't have to tell you what I'm doing. And I think he's wrong about that. My Republican colleagues agree, at least on that point.
What I was just going to say, what are your Republican colleagues telling you behind closed doors? If you can pull back the curtain for us.
Yeah, well, I mean, Chairman Rogers pulled back the curtain for you right there in front of everybody and said they're feeling very frustrated. The administration does not have a clear plan moving forward, and they're not sharing that information with us. I think a lot of Republicans are saying that. Now, to me, that is a reason to vote for the War Powers Resolution, saying, no, we're not going to let you continue to do this without our authority. Thus far, very few Republicans, I think it's 2 in the House, have been willing to take that step. But that's the step that needs to happen if you really want to hold the president accountable.
Sir, we're already in the war at this point. So War Powers Resolution or not, we find ourselves in Iran. So if we back out now, will that leave the Persian Gulf, our allies there, and even the U.S. here at home less safe?
Yeah. Well, no. I think what leaves us less safe is that we started the war in the first place. And you are diving right into the sunk cost fallacy, which is horrible, horrible mistake. If we stop now, it'll become obvious that it was a horrible, horrible mistake. So let's just keep going to make it an even bigger mistake, to have even higher costs involved. Yeah, if we stop now, it's going to be a problem, but it's going to be worse if we don't. So, yeah, you can make all kinds of arguments. Oh, gosh, if we stop now, what about this? What about that? What about the other thing? I don't necessarily disagree, which is why, again, we shouldn't have started it in the first place. It'll be worse if we keep going, because all of those problems that you can list about us stopping now, they're going to be there if we stop a month from now, 2 months from now, or 6 months from now, because Iran has made it clear they will survive. They're going to dig in and go for survival, and we have no plan to overcome that. The longer we do this, the higher the cost, no closer to actually achieving a more desirable outcome.
Congressman Adam Smith, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Thank you.